Hello and welcome to the AutoCAD course in architectural drafting. My name is James Mills, and well, first of all, thank you very much for putting your trust in the European School of Architecture. We hope we fulfill the purpose of the course, which is not only to teach you the most important tools this program has to offer for drafting your plans the best way possible, but also to teach you interesting ways to organize yourselves and to organize your time management using this program. We're going to learn basic drawing tools, these ones over here, and we're also going to learn how to draft a floor plan like the one you have in front. Okay, but before we start, I would like to make sure that you have downloaded the files that we facilitate in our website, and that you have downloaded properly AutoCAD and Photoshop. After we finish the plan in AutoCAD, we will transpose it over to Photoshop and do some things with it. Use Photoshop to do up the plan a bit. So before we check out the basic tools, these drawing tools with which you can draw virtually any plan, these ones on the left, it's important that you have these two bars activated. If you don't have them activated, this arrow, you click on it and you find this option, hide menu bar. My option is hide menu bar because I had it activated, but if you don't have it, it'll say show menu bar. Once you get some experience with the program, if you want to hide it because you're not using them and you want more space here, that is absolutely fine, but we recommend you have it available. Next, check out this command bar. This is basically how you're going to be interacting with Photoshop, and many times we're going to be using the keyboard. So if I just press PR for properties, you'll see this window coming up. It normally comes out by default, in the middle of the screen. But if you click on the side and drag it to your left until you see this and let go there, it becomes like a drop-down window, and it's very useful for many things. It just shows the properties of the items you select. So if you need that information at that time, you just basically click on it and it appears. So it's very handy. Great. These options here are not drawing options, but they are very important. If you see a blue background, that means that they are activated. If it's not, they're not activated. They're basically options that you can activate or deactivate depending on your needs at the specific time of drawing. Right now, this grid mode, for instance, is activated. If I deactivate it, you won't be able to see the grid. Depending on what you like or how you prefer it, you can draw with or without it. I am going to leave the grid out. As you advance and you see the plans get complicated, if you have many lines and you add this grid to the lines that you're going to have in the drawing, it's going to be much more difficult to follow. But if you're doing simpler drawings, then it can help. This other grid, it says snap mode. If you click on it, you will ensure that every time you click on a point, that point will be part of an imaginary grid that AutoCAD has come up with. So you know that you are within this imaginary grid. It's not important, we're not going to be using it, and it can also be confusing. So I'm going to deactivate both, and these two options are very important. This one's called Ortho Mode. If you click on it, you will see I'm going to click the command line. I'm going to click on line. and I'm going to do lines, and it's only going to allow to draw vertical and horizontal lines. So as you probably know, when we draw architecture, we are going to be drawing with orthogonal lines virtually all of the time. And if you don't want to, if you're drawing very quickly and you don't want to do diagonal lines by mistake, it's a very useful tool. I prefer this one, the polar tracking mode. As you can see, you can't have both activated. What does this do? This is a very similar tool, but when you do a line, it does allow you to do a vertical line, but there's a kind of like a magnet that snaps your cursor to the vertical and horizontal axis. So if you want to do vertical and horizontal, is almost as quick, but you can also do diagonal lines. Mess around with it. Also mess around with the play around with these with the line. Make sure you have the you get familiar with the line option, because it's very important. These two options, snap cursor to 2D and snapping references. As you probably have seen, if I click on line, this will ask me where the line starts. If I get close to like a specific point, as you can see there's a green square, and if I click on the square, it'll go directly to the square. So I know that that line starts in that very point. This is very important. If I didn't have them activated and I say line, I say okay, I'm going to start my point here. It seems okay, but if I zoom in, it's very difficult to get it exactly on the point. So these are very important. It also helps you with references. So let's imagine I want to start my line a bit further over here. So it says their extension, and I can say 125, and I'm going to start my line here, and I know this is a straight line. This one's this button here. Very important tools, always on. You can also click on this arrow and you can activate these ones. You can play around again with these options, but for example here it says midpoint. If I want to start my line in the middle of this line, there's a triangle there that tells me that that's the middle. So if I erased this option and then came back to L, that middle point wouldn't appear. So make sure these options are activated, okay, because they're going to be very useful. One more thing before we carry on. By the way, if I say L, I mean that I'm typing the letter L for line. I'm doing lines. I'm going to show you how to do that now. But I'm going to show you the selection modes in AutoCAD. If I click on the left part of the screen and I take the mouse to my right, you will see a blue background. This means that in order to select, I have to select the entire item, if it's a line, a circle, whatever the item is, okay, in order to select it. If I do it the other way around, you can see a green background and a dashed line. Only by selecting part of it, it's going to get selected, okay? So again, depending on what you want, and when there are millions of lines in the drawing, it's going to be one way or the other. We'll see more examples as we go on. I am constantly pressing the S key on the keyboard every time I want to deselect something, every time I want to go back to back to the start, to normal mode. And it's very important that we have one hand on the keyboard and the other hand on the mouse to be as quick as possible. And we are going to be using the keyboard for many things. and the mouse is absolutely essential. Use a wheel mouse, of course, for zooming in and zooming out, and pressing the center, the wheel, to move in your workspace. Okay, if you press the center, you can move, then zoom in, then zoom out, find your other one. Okay, it's very important to be quick with these options. Anyway, so without further ado, let's start checking out the drawing tools. This one's top left corner. First one is line. That's the one we've been using now. If you just click on it and just click on the screen, you will see that here in the command bar, it basically tells you specify next point or undo. So if I just say ESC or U, I undo whatever I've done. If I type L in the keyboard, I'm also activating line. So if I type L and enter or spacebar, it's the same as clicking on the button here. Okay, so I click, and I don't need to click again to start a new line if I want them all together. And remember, if you make a mistake, you just say undo to go back. I'm just typing the U. U enter, U spacebar, whatever is better. What is polyline? I'll tell you what polyline is. The difference between polyline and line is that a polyline is the same item. Okay, depending on what you're doing. Again, if you want to have one unique line for selecting, for editing, it may come in more handy than having separate lines. Okay, so for example here, maybe I'm not happy with this, I can move it. Okay, I can't do that with the polyline. Okay, as you can see in polyline, it also has its command on the keyboard. It's PL, and if I click on the screen again, you'll see specify next point or, and it gives you options. We'll see these options as we advance in the course. The first option, and the one we're going to use the most, is just entering the magnitude of the line itself. So as you can see there, it says 1284. If I say 1500, I have the exact magnitude I want to apply. I want to get rid of this. Erase. Okay, I can find erase here, or I can type E and spacebar. Circle, as easy as you can imagine. Repeat circle. If you click on the right button of your mouse, you can go to the exact same thing you did before. Okay, so if I say line, do my lines, press ESC and then right click, I repeat line. Okay, circle's nice and easy, and arc is a part of a circle. It's composed of 3 points: a starting point, then you have to click on the middle point, and then wherever you want the arc to finish. You can edit your arc after you have finished, and it will respect the start and end point, and you can sort of move around your middle point. Okay, next, modifying options. Once you have whatever you've drawn, there are a number of things you can do, and it's very important not only to memorize everything you can do, but also to be quick. Okay, so if you want to move this line, there's a number of things you can do. You can click on move. It says select object, I select the object I want to move. Okay, now that I've finished selecting objects, I click on enter or spacebar, and I click on a point from which I want to move. So I could move it from here, you see, or I can move it from anywhere. Okay, so click on move, select object, press enter, and then you can move your object. It's important that you get the hang of it to be as quick as possible. The command for move is M, and it's even quicker. Another way you can move or do any, modify any of your lines is by selecting. After selecting, clicking on move. Okay, selecting, hitting the M button, M key, and moving. It's very important to get familiar with these options, because you were going to do it, it's going to be constant, and the quicker the better. I use the keyboard a lot, but you can use these buttons here. Next, copy. Well, let's say I want to erase this. Let's say I want to copy this. How do I do? Well, again, it's the same process. I can either select, click on copy, click a point from which I want to copy, and finish. You can copy as many times as you like, and then click ESC to go back, or you can click on copy and then select whatever you want to copy, and then click on enter. Okay, more rotate. Well, you are going to imagine what rotate is, but anyway, let's do this. I can select whatever I want to rotate, click on rotate. It says base point here, so well, let's imagine you have like a pivot point here, and this is going to be the center of the circle. Okay, and then it tells you specify rotation angle. So if you say 90, well, I could do it 90 using polar, but if you click 90, if you type 90 and then enter, you have a 90 degrees angle. Right button, repeat rotate, find your pivot point, base point, and 90 again. Let's imagine I don't want to do 90, I want to do 45. Click again on rotate from this point, and 45. Off it goes. Okay, remember, you can either select the modifying option and then select your items, or you can do it the other way around. Mirror. Well, mirror, I'm going to say rotate here. Instead of 45, 135, so I have it as I had before. Mirror, basically what you select whatever you want to mirror, and what you have to do is to create a line that is going to copy whatever you've selected and mirror the image. Basically, there's two options here. It says erase source objects. Well, basically that means that if for some reason you wanted to erase the original drawing, you can. If I say yes, I erase it. If I say no, I don't. In architecture and, well, drafting plans, mirror is going to come up many times, and both options are useful. If I select this and go back to mirror again, you can also use the keyboard for this. I say Y for yes, and I get rid of it. I say N for no, and I don't. Okay. E for erase. Okay. Scale, also very important. Let's imagine I do a rectangle. We haven't done rectangles. Click on rectangle. Do a rectangle, and I want another rectangle here. I want this side, this length to be the same length as this one, so I select it, M, move it, leave it here, and I want this side to be as long as this side. Okay, so what do? I select my rectangle, I click on scale. It says specify base point. This is going to be my base point, and from here you can say, okay, if you want it twice as big, you just say 2, enter, and it's twice as big. Or you can click on it, repeat scale, base point, and it says here reference. So I'm going to type the R, and it asks you for 2 reference points. One, the base point, the other, this point, and now I can make it, you know, exactly the magnitude I want. That is a scale. Trim. Well, also when we do plans, we are going to need many times to trim lines. Let's imagine I don't want this bit here. How can I do it? Well, I can select the line and just go back, you know, just move it. But in certain occasions, especially if there are many lines, it's going to be easier to select a line that's going to trim your other lines. Then click on this, and it will directly trim the lines you want to trim. So I've selected the line from which there's basically going to cut out the lines I want to. And this one, fillet, is an option we're going to see in a while when we do the plan. So anyway, for now, with what we have, it's enough to start drawing. I'm going to erase this. This one's very important. Offset. What it does is, well, parallel lines, and parallel lines are also very important when drafting architecture. I'm going to do a polyline. So you see, let's imagine this is my building and the walls have no width, ESC for finishing. Okay, this is my polyline, and I want a parallel line that, you know, basically respects the shape of what I have just drawn, and I want it out of the so in the outer part of this wall. So I select it, I click on offset. It says select the distance. I can say 100, for example, offset distance. So how, you know, the distance from parallel to parallel line, and then I can either choose to have it to the outside or to the inside. Okay, it applies the same when you do a line. Offset again. I'm going to keep it there in 100. So I click on what I want, well, what line I want to recreate, and if I put the cursor to the right, it'll show up to the right, and if I put it to the left, okay. The same with circles. Offset, I'm going to say it's 2000. Click on what I want to recreate again, and there you go. Very useful for architectural drafting. And erase. E, enter. Finally, layer properties. This button here, okay, absolutely indispensable for drawing in AutoCAD or in any architectural drawing. If you are not familiar with any program that has layers, well, it's important that you know how to use them and learn them and understand how they work, and being organized with the layers, with the naming of the layers, and with what you include in each layer. So if you click on this button here, it'll show you this panel. Okay, I'll make it a bit bigger so we can see. And the layer that comes by default is always called 0, and the color is white. But here it says create new layer. Okay, and you can create as many layers as you want. Okay, and then you can rename them. So you can say here section line, projection line, something else. Aux for auxiliary. Okay, and you've got a number of different options within each. Don't need this, but just so you see, this is basically turning it off and on. So imagine I select this projection. I'm going to change the color. Let's have a green. And I'm going to select the layer I want to draw on, and I do a line, and then change, go back to 0. And if it's on now, and I can turn it off. If I turn it off, guess what's going to happen? I can't see the green line that corresponds to the projection lines. This is to lock. So if you don't want to change anything by mistake, you can lock it. So back comes the green line, and I want to change it. I want to move it. Move. Just won't allow me. So it's also important. And finally, the plot. So you can probably guess, but if I click on the plot icon, basically means that when I print it out, whatever I deactivate won't come out. So for example, the auxiliary line, if it's just for helping out with, maybe finding references in the plans and so forth, it's also important. You can draw a line. After you draw the line, select it and take it to another layer. For example, here, off it goes to selection line. Or you can use match properties. If I say line, I'm going to unlock this one. If I want this one to be green, if I say match, click on the item that I want to match with what, and there it goes. Now it's here. Anyway, so once we have this under control, we are going to start doing the plan that is, the first exercise of the course. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to erase, and we're going to look for the plan that we are going to be using for the first exercise of the course. So if you go into your folders, the ones you find in the website, click on PDF and click on basement. We're basically going to imagine that we finished the design of a floor plan in our studios, and it's time to transpose it into AutoCAD. We've got the dimensions here. So basically, we're going to use the information that we have here to create the AutoCAD floor plan. Great, but before we do that, what you need to open is File, Open, this file here, Props and Layers, okay? and this file has the blocks we're going to be using, and it also has the layers organized. Okay, sometimes it's difficult when you're starting to decide the layers you're going to be using, how many of them, the names of the layers, and the basically the plotting options. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, if you go back again, it says here PlotStyles. If you grab this and copy, and you come back to your AutoCAD, here in A it says print, and you find this one, manage PlotStyles. This is basically what this does, and I'm going to paste it here. Great. After I've done this, let's imagine I want to plot. And we want to make sure that, well, we're going to do a PDF and then pass it on to Photoshop. We want to make sure that we have the correct one here. Okay, make sure the plot styles that you select are the ones that you just pasted onto your folder with your plot styles. Brilliant. So let's begin. Well, I'm going to use this very file, because what I'm going to be doing is, if I draw something that is not in its correspondent layer, I'm just going to match property. So imagine I just draw a line, and I don't want this line to be in region. I want it to be in section. So I'll just say match properties, and there it goes. Okay. So anyway, let's begin. And so I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to start from this very point. Okay, 745, 280, 430, 130, 1095. So we're going to use the command line for this. We could use polyline, but I want to work with the lines individually afterwards. So just memorize the numbers. And here, 745, as we said before, 280. If you want to use the command, this one, auto, maybe even more useful for this, but I just prefer to use this one. 430 we said, and 130, 1095. Back to our drawing, to our floor plan. 8, 160, 1250, 720, 855, 8, 160. So you're probably wondering, 1250, why is he drawing with these brown lines? But no worries, I can change those later. 720, 855. Back to our drawing here. 645. I know this is 40, but I'll work my way from the other side. Okay, so it's 645, 740 over here. $645, and then we said command line again. 740 and 745. Okay, and then we can just close this. Okay, so we have the perimeter. Remember, I can say, okay, if this is a projection, I can change it to projection. If this is section, I can use this to change things around. So next step would be to, I'm going to organize these walls here. Okay, organize these walls here, and I'm going to start with the easiest bits and move on to the more complicated parts. Okay, so just so you know, there are three kinds of walls. You've got the walls that are in contact with the terrain. Okay, these are 40 centimeters wide. And then you've got the other walls that are, you know, facade walls, contact with the exterior. And then you've got the separation walls. Those are 10 centimeters. The others are 30 centimeters. So we're going to start with these ones. This big one surrounding the whole building. And to do that, we're going to use this. I'm just going to have this in the layer section. We're going to use this one, the offset, where are we? Sorry, offset tool, and distance, so we're going to say 40.4, and well, basically around the whole building and inside, not to the inside. Let's remember how this looks. This was 30, okay. So I don't need to do this. I'm going to erase this. So anyway, you have these ones here. You can trim, okay. So you click on trim and you can get rid of these. Nice and easy. There you go. Nice and easy. And these ones you want to join together, right? So you could do two things. You could either just grab these and join them together and then trim, or if we come over to this one, you could use this command, fillet. Okay, basically if you just join, you can join both, or you can select, okay, you can apply a radius to it and you can have like a rounded corner, but we're not going to do that now. If you say radius 0, then you would have this nice sharp corner. Okay, great. Okay, so next step, we're going to start with the garage. Okay, garage, we know that this is 30 centimeters, this wall over here, and this is 10 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to start with just giving this wall 10 centimeters. You know, we've got this 375 here, and then from then on it's 30 centimeters, and then this is a projection, and we've got 4 cars. So we could just use this to extend our line. There we go, and we could just maybe draw another line here because it's going to change, and trim this one. So this one we know, give an offset, no, erase, 0.30, and here we go, excuse me, and then we had 375 from the wall, 375 from the wall. So first of all, this line here is incorrect, so I'm going to erase it. I'm going to use the offset, say 375, and we know this wall here, if we trim over here, this wall is 0.1, okay, and from here, offset again, we know this is 0.3, okay. So I'm going to erase these. I'm going to use the command extend again, extend, and take it here and take it over here, erase this one and fillet this one and this one, match properties, here we go. So we have this, and well, I can get rid of this too for now. So this is going to be my, sorry, don't want to get, this is going to be my room. Which is 156 from the wall, and then we'll have to finish the garage. So offset 1.56. Did we say 156? I think so. This is my wall, okay. And well, I would need to trim this one, right? Because this is a section, and then another line, match properties. This is a projection, and the cars, well, as many as I can. I think here we have, well, we have 2 cars, so we can find them a place. Just, this is a entire block, so if you copy CO, copy, we can have 1, 2, 3, 4, and there is a gap here, so we want to make these, you know, you want to take them to the center. So I'm just going to move them, and this line here has a center. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them again, move, and find the triangle. This triangle means center of the line. Okay, and now, well, I'm going to erase this one and erase this one. Okay, I'm going to leave this as it is, and I'm going to work with the skin of the building, and we're going to start with this glass facade here. Okay, we're going to give it maybe less width than our walls. We're going to say 0.05, and we've got a pillar which is 0.25. So off we go. How would you do this? How would you do this? Well, we can do a rectangle and just say here a 22.5. Sorry, 0.25 comma 0.25, and there we go. This is going to be section, match properties, section, move. Sometimes I use the keyboard. So you can use, just click here every time you want to, you know, draw or change or modify. Sometimes if you see that I don't come over here, I'm using the keyboard. Okay, remember that. Okay, and then this is going to be our glass facade. I'm just dragging this point to where this starts, and offset. I'm used to using the keyboard, that's why offset, but I want you to see, and 0.05, and this is the facade. And again, make sure that when you do extra lines they don't overlap, because they can cause problems when you plot. And again, offset, O for offset, and 0.05, and we have this finished more or less. How does this work in our plan? Well, we take it all over to this, you know, to this edge. It doesn't specify how long this is, but let's say it's 2 meters, something like that. It's not important. So maybe we can say up to this point 2 meters. Just going to say L and 2. Offset 0.3, and then a line joining them. And we've got to get rid of this, right? So we're going to say TR for trim, get rid of these, and then we'll have to match properties, right? Match properties, and off we go. And these two we can extend till they get here, right? So click on extend, and it's not getting to that point. What about, why isn't it? So I'm going to erase it, say offset, and 0.05, and this should match, and this matches too. Okay, so we've got this skin already organized, and we have to carry on with this space over here. So let's go back to our plan. So I'm going to start sorting out this volume, which is, as you can see here, it says 189 and 235. Okay, without taking into account these, these separation walls, and then you've got 2 meters over here, and then we're going to do the doors, and we have blocks for the doors. So if you go back to your plan and just say any odd line and offset 0.1, and then we know that we said 1.89, so again offset 1.89, and then it was 2.30. This was 2.35. I'm very sorry. It's offset 2.35, and then offset again and 0.1, and finally offset again, and I think it was 2 meters up to where, and here we have our wardrobes. There were some wardrobes here. So now again offset for the width, and this is 1.89, and finally 0.1 for this. Erase, offset 0.1, and here we go. I'm going to use the fillet again, fillet here, and fillet here, right? Because there's no wall here. Okay, next we've got a door here, a door here, and a door here. This door is not correctly put. Okay, it should open this way, so the door, as it's open, is left on this side, because otherwise there's no room to come in. So we're going to change that, and we're going to use, well, the door. Okay, so CO for copy, and you said one door is going to go here more or less, another is going to come over here, and the other one's going to come over here. So how do we do this? Well, remember this command, mirror, and obviously we want to get rid of erase source of objects. I'm going to say yes, because I don't want that door. Yes, and then I'm going to move it up to this point. Okay, I'm going to cut this, trim this afterwards, and then here, well, the same. I'm going to move this up to this point, and probably somewhere over here. And forgotten where this goes. Okay, rotate. If you rotate, that is okay. So we want to, well, obviously put the doors in their places. Okay, and we want to carry on with this space over here. We know it's 334 up to this point, and 375. 375 we know because it's the same. So 334. We'll worry about this later. And well, this is a projection, okay, because it is like a terrace. So if you come back here and you say match properties, projection, this is a projection, and also doors and windows. This is another layer we have, so I'm going to use this for these windows, right? That's important. Okay, first we're going to move this. You would never have this, so against this wall. We're going to move it 10 centimeters over this way, and now I have to get rid of this, right? So I'm going to say trim and off it goes, but it hasn't gone. If I click on this line, it's taking it up to this point, and it's very important that you make sure that these lines don't overlap, otherwise you may have problems with your when you plot, as I said before. Okay, and fillet here, and match properties, make sure this is in your section. Okay, this is organized. Trim, this is organized. What about this one? Well, same process. I hope you're getting the knack of things. Move, do we want this to be here? Sorry, M. Move, do we want this to be here? Well, we don't. Again, just to be coherent and consistent. TR, enter, and off it goes. And this one, and then L, here again. And look, you could just do an L here, not even get to the bottom, and if you use the fillet, this doesn't exist anymore. Okay, and then match properties. It's another way of, and then this door, well, I'm going to match properties here just to make sure. Trim, move here, move, point 1, and move to this point, for example, and we can just say L here and L here, and trim these walls. And again, you can use fillet for this and fillet for this also, and match properties again. Great. And what we said here, the width of this space was, well, after we have our wall here. If we click on offset 3.34 and then offset 0.1 again. Okay, this is the next room. And what do we have in our next room? Let's zoom in. So we have, well, this weird space here. Well, it's a distributor, 158 and 120, and it starts off from this like corridor. Okay, 158, 120, and you've got 3 doors, one that takes you to this door, and the other to the bedroom. Okay, so let's start doing this. Back to AutoCAD. So remember, our lines start from where this point, from where the wardrobes begin. Okay, and we know that our distributor was 120 and it started off from here. So if we just say offset 120, okay, we know this is where it starts. This is where the wall starts. Then there was like a I'm just going to say 10 centimeters for that. Undo and 0.1, maybe 0.2. It's this point. I'm going to say 0.2. undo again, and 0.2 and 0.1. That's it for now. Okay, and then we said 158 from this point to the next. Okay, so we know now if we extend this line, this is our small distributor. So trim this one, out it goes, and there was a wall on this side. I'm just going to trim here, okay, and offset 0.3. There was a wall here. This is the wall, okay. And the door should be more or less in the center, so I'm going to say extend, extend, erase this line, and we'll just start feeling as though copy, here. This door opens towards this wall, so mirror and yes. This wall, this door to this wall, and this wall, this door over here. So RO for rotate, MI for mirror. Do I want to get rid of it? Of course I want to. And M for move. And this one, just rotate. You can specify angle as well, so if I say 90, it'll rotate 90. Or I can just turn it until I find the point to which I want to turn it, and move here, move 0.1, trim, align and fillet here, and fillet here, and trim here, and another line over here. Well, I'm not going to finish. You're going to finish alone, but you get the idea, right? Fillet, going little by little. This is probably the trickiest part of, where am I? Where is match properties? To the first line, and we want a line over here. Okay, and then finally offset 0.1, offset 0.1, and there we go. Align and align, and then trim. So you can click on the line, or you can just do an arrow, like like a line crossing whatever you want to trim. And remember, no overlapping. I still have this wardrobe to organize, but it's almost done. Erase this. L. So what I've done is I want to start from here because I want to do a fillet. So I say L, and instead of clicking, I drag it until I reach this point, and then click, and then maybe not even finish. Oh yes, I can finish because this is going to be my line. Ah no, well. There we go. And then trim this bit and match properties. There we go. And also this one, important, match properties. And if we come back, we want to erase this and offset 0.1, and then this room has this funny shape in it. Okay, so come back, we want to maybe do this fillet and fit, and end of story. There we go. Make sure everything is in its right layer. I prefer working with a different layer and then match properties, so I know that I have to match properties. Otherwise, if I were working in section, I may accidentally just draw a section line, which is a projection line, and then forget about it. So I see, this is one of the brown ones I'm not using, so I have to change it. So for example, here where we have, probably need a midpoint here, this would be like a projection line as well, and we've got like in the middle point like a divider. So this, say L, it's a very thin wall, so you could say offset, and instead of saying 0.05, I'm going to say 0.025 and get rid of the one in the center, erase, and then trim. And then if we go back, we can see that here it opens onto this side. So I'm going to say 0.05 as well for this space here. So I'm going to just do a line, and I'm going to move this line. Okay, move 0.05. And then I can trim this, I can trim this, I can trim this. And anyway, that will be it. I'm not going to be doing any drawing for now because I want to add annotations. I want to show you how they work. These two, match properties, projection. Okay, so you have to finish on your own. Okay, I'm going to add some blocks now and some annotations which are important. but you make sure you finish the whole building. So let's see what we're going to add. So there's three things we're going to be doing now. On the one hand, which is very easy, furniture, and you've got it in blocks. And I do recommend you don't draw your own furniture ever. Find blocks, there's millions. We're going to facilitate some, but you can find on the internet. So make sure you use blocks that are already, unless you are I mean, furniture is a very important part of the project, but you can spend a lot of time drawing them, okay? And then these annotations, dimensions, okay? It may seem very easy. It is easy, but you want them to be like in a very specific manner. And finally, we've got some titles for our, rooms, each room, and the surface, okay, the area they occupy. So furniture. Let's go furniture. Furniture. Well, just as we just put the cars here, okay, and the parking lots, it's just about moving. So you just select whatever you want to select and move. You can click here, or you can say M and enter. So it's all about moving and maybe selecting and rotating. RO, enter, if you want to give it some angle, okay. And then here we have the shower, the sink, and the toilet. Again, you select and you move it. Sorry, you select and you move. I got rid of the that window. Here in this corner, okay. So maybe if you want to move things around, but try to make it, as similar as you can to the original plan. Well, you've got this wall here, so you can do it if you like. So back to the line, to the plan, and have your wall here, 1 meter, for example, 0.1, and off you go, and match properties and trim. Okay, so this is only about moving, and then you've got the dimensions. Okay, we're going to see in further units of this course how to customize your dimension annotations, but we've left here for you how we do it at the studio. The easiest way is, you click here, okay, you want to show, the measure, how much this measures from here to here, and AutoCAD just gives you their their form, no, by default. If you do it again, you can go, whatever you want to show, one by one, and it's quite simple. So this is AutoCAD's version, okay, but we have our own, and again we're going to show you how to do it. But if you just match properties for this, okay, you will see that you'll get the exact same custom annotation that we have, and you can move things, okay, so you can more or less use the same, get to the same point we did on this one. Apart from this, you can also find the descriptions of, here it says text, okay, so you can copy this text we use. Remember, these colors are not the colors we're going to see in the final plot, okay. We'll show you now how that may look. If you copy the text and say, well, for example, here, this is you can storage room, okay, and and have it there. And finally, something which is very interesting is the area. So we are going to learn how to do this, but we've left an area, a polyline attached to an area. So if you copy these, okay, put them aside, and you change the area, for example here, there we go, and you just type region for regenerate, okay, the area changes. So if you just copy both, you have to copy both, you can't just copy the polyline, you copy both and you drag them to the, you know, whatever you want to measure, for example this storage room, okay, and you just put the corners on, you know, where they correspond. And now I would have to just get this, make sure I don't get anything else, move it to where I want it to be, below. I think this is not meant to be storage room, I think it said facilities, so facilities, there we go. And then remember region, so 5.8, and you could do the same with this one. This is the storage space, so copy. This one should say storage room, and then get the polyline and get your area, copy it too. But in this case it's a bit more difficult because this is not like a rectangle, right? So you can move this towards here, move this over to this side, and what happens here? So if you just put your cursor here, it says add vertex, so you can add vertex, and again for the other one, and it's exactly the same. Look, I left this here, and then region, and then move it. So you got to do this with, you know, all of the rooms. Make sure you put the furniture where it belongs, make sure you know, do the correct annotations, and the areas, okay? Once you have finished, well, there's a last thing we've got to do, which is we're going to take this into Photoshop and start working from Photoshop now. So I'm going to open the final floor plan, which we have left in your folders. If you come here to solved exercise and you open it, well, this is what your final result, you know, what your final floor plan should look like. And the idea now is to, well, learn how to create a PDF, okay, and you know, the kinds of PDFs we want to do in order to have like a proficient work, you know, a workboard for Photoshop, okay? So we have been working in model, and every time we work, we change things, we modify, we draw. We're going to be in model, okay? But here we have layout. Whenever we want to plot, whenever we want to create a PDF, whenever we want to do, you know, whenever we finished and we want a final, you know, a final document, we're going to work from a layout. And there's, you know, millions of options this part of AutoCAD has, and we'll learn the most important ones in this course. So for this, the first thing you got to do is configure your page. What kind of page do you want? Okay, so if you right click on layout, okay, and you say page setup manager, you say new, a new page, and well, setup one is fine, and you are introduced to this, you know, to this table of options. So the first thing is, what do you want? How do you want to print out your document? For this exercise, we want a PDF. So click here to create a PDF, and the next important bit is the size of the page. Well, if we want to print out ever from PDF, what size are we thinking about? Are we going to print an A4? Are we going to print an A3? For this exercise, we have thought about doing an A3. Okay, make sure that your page configuration is, you don't want it this way, otherwise you're going to cut out the borders. That will cut out part of the drawing, sorry. Layout for this bit, okay, and here it is important that you have 1000 millimeters for every unit. This is for, the scale, when you do the scale. If you have applied transparencies, and we will use them in the future, you can just click here to make sure it applies them, it takes them into account. And once you've finished, before clicking OK, yes, this is very important that you have your PlotStyles, the folder we uploaded at the beginning of the video. Otherwise, you're going to have, section in red, projection in blue, the way we were drawing. We don't want the final result to look as we were drawing in the model. Of course, the model was just for us to work in an easier way. So make sure this is selected, and then you click on OK, and off we go. Great. So once we have the page configured, what you need to know is what we want to have in the page. How do you select what you want to have in the page? By creating viewports. Okay, so right now the page is in blank. Okay, probably have, we don't have anything here now. Okay, so if you click here on view, and you say, you click here on view and you say new viewports, new viewport, you can create, it's only one unique viewport for this exercise. Sometimes you can create more, and we'll see examples. And you have this image. Select, whatever you have in model by default. Okay, you may have millions of things and it'll give you everything. So what is important to know about this stage of the project? Well, what's important to know is that you can select your viewport and, change things around. Okay, and it's important to know that if you double click inside the viewport, this line here becomes wider, and you basically in the space, in a model space, so you can change things around as if you were in the model space. But we don't normally work like that because it can be confusing. So if you want to change things, go back to model. Okay, but bear in mind, well, if you finished configuring it, so if you want, imagine you want your building to be on this side of the viewport, whatever. Okay, make sure you go out and never touch it again. Okay, in this case, the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that the scale is appropriate. Okay, so how do we do this? Just click on the viewport, and here you've got an arrow. If you click here, you've got all the different scales. Okay, you can customize, and we'll learn that in other units, but let's go for 100. And so I'm going to click inside, and if I scroll, I'm going to change the scale. So I'm not going to scroll, I'm just going to center it. There we go. Perfect. So I could say now plot, continue plot, and just everything is fine, yes, and just preview, and this is how it should look. But before we pass this on to Photoshop, and you'll understand why in a second, this is not exactly how we're gonna do our PDFs. We're gonna plot out our PDFs. What we are gonna do, I'm going to press ESC. Here we go, and what we are gonna do is to print out two different documents. Okay, on the one hand, we're going to print out just the architecture, and on another document we're going to print out the annotations. How do we do this? Well, if you click this button, okay, the one that says off, and you just click whatever you want to deactivate, it'll deactivate the the whole layer. So I'm going to deactivate annotations, and I'm going to go back to layout, just ESC, back to layout and plot, continue. It should stay the same, yes, preview. So I have this copy on the one hand, and just going to say plot. I'm going to leave it in desktop for now. Solved exercise. I'm going to call it architecture. Save. Great. This is the first document, and on the other hand, if I can activate all the layers again and do the same with the rest. Okay. It's furniture, so I could come in here and even deactivate everything except annotation, text, sanitary region. Okay, so we have this, and I have region and just going to select layer 0 and okay, so I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to go back to layer. This is what I have. Has to be exactly the same sheet, and you'll understand why. And again, plot, continue plot, and preview. So you should have this, and plot. Just maybe annotations in the desktop. Great. And once you have these two, what I want you to do is to open your Photoshop, install it. There's a link in the website where you can find where to install it. And the idea now is to find PDFs and open them in Photoshop. So if you come over to here, left them in desktop, we're going to start with the architecture one. Okay, this one. So say file, open, and this is going to appear. Okay, this part is important because you want to be consistent when it comes to opening everything you do. Here you're going to keep this in the media box, okay, and you're going to make sure that this is an A3 420 by 297. and then there's the resolution. Resolution, well, depends what you want to do. If you want to print it out, you want a high resolution like the one it shows, 300, and you want a CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay, this is the color range you need if you want to print something out. If you wanted to just show it on screens or project it on a wall or something like that, you could go to RGB, red, green, and blue, and you could lower the resolution. Okay, so you could say this is in pixels per inch, by the way. You could say 72 is the resolution you need for a normal computer screen, but when you zoom in, you would lose resolution if you just keep it there in 72. So you would need something around 150 if you are not going to be printing out. In our case, we have to print it out. So well, we want to, that's our intention. So we're going to keep this in 300. And we're going to click in OK. So now we have our plan in this sort of pattern, black and white or gray and white pattern. And we're going to open the next one. So File, Open. And where are you? Annotations. But sorry, no, we're not going to open it through here. If I clicked on it and opened it, I would have like another different Photoshop workspace, and I want to have them both like in separate layers. Okay, so I'm going to find here my my file, okay, PDF, and I'm going to drag it in. Okay, this way. Okay, in this case I'm not given the options because I've already configured it. Okay, make sure it says media box here. And if you click on OK, you'll have exactly the same paper size as we printed out on AutoCAD, and they're exactly overlapping each other. Okay, so it coincides exactly. And we have two separate layers. Okay, one says annotations, the other, I could change the name and say architecture. Okay, I can also create a group and call it plans. Okay, you can see that it's not very comfortable to work with this background. This symbolizes in Photoshop that where is it here? Yeah, it's not in. This symbolizes in Photoshop that whatever you're working on is transparent, and it's far easier to work with a white background. So if you click on this icon and you go for a solid color, we're going to go to here, picker, and the whitest you can find. Okay, and you can't see anything now because this layer is on top, so if you drag it to the bottom you'll be able to see. Okay, there we go. So now that we have our layers together, we can start to work. Okay, and just so you understand, when we start to, I'm going to click on my architecture layer, and I'm going to click on this, where are we here, bucket tool, and I'm going to just do this. If I wanted to color this out, okay, Photoshop does a really good job, Control Z here, but if I had printed things out as they were in the solved exercise, remember I withdrew the preview because I wanted to print these two options. Why? Because you have these, this can happen, and well, anyway, I could go, you know, gap by gap, okay, changing things, but it makes things really complicated. Okay, if I say Control Z and go back to where I was, and just deactivate this layer annotations, then it's going to be far easier to work. And when I finish, I'll just put it back and you'll be able to, to see everything well. Okay, I'm going to go back and we're going to start to make this, more presentable. Just so you know, in our course presentation of projects, we go through these options in a far more thorough way. And when you hand in this exercise, if you don't want to do this part, the part of Photoshop, we understand. We just want to highlight the idea that combining different softwares makes the architectural presentation much better. So in this case, we're combining Photoshop and AutoCAD, but if you want to just hand in what you did in AutoCAD, that's absolutely fine. So for this, we've got these layers here. Okay, we can assign like a color to them. Okay, and we can create a new layer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start creating layers, and for each layer it's going to be one texture, a different texture. So we're going to start off by coloring out the inside of the house, and for this we need you to find File, Open, to find some of the documents we left in your lesson 1. Okay, so if you come over to Docs and Textures, open for example Interior Wood, and what we're going to do now is we're going to use this as our paint. Okay, the bucket, the one I've just showed you, can either paint like a solid color or it can paint using a pattern. So we're going to create a pattern out of this texture, out of this JPG. So the first thing we're going to do is to make it a bit smaller. Okay, so how do we do this? Image and image size, and if we reduce the height, say in pixels, if we have 500 pixels for the height, that's okay. You're going to see it, it's going to be very small in the final, like in the final plan, where it's in the plan, so you don't need this to be a very big image. And now we have to create a pattern. Okay, how do we do this? Here in Edit, Define Pattern, call it Interior Wood, leave it like that. You say okay, and now you can draw, you can paint using that pattern. If we come back, make sure we are in this layer, we can say wood inside for inside, and make sure you are in the layer. Make sure you select this. How do I ensure that I paint with the pattern? Well, here I've got this color and here it says foreground. I need to change the pattern. Okay, and here I have like a number of patterns. It's always the last one. Okay, it's always the last one. If the last one you did is the one you're going to use. Here it says Interior Wood. Okay, and now you can just click here and make sure that this is fine. As you can see, well, here, as you can see, you've got some spaces that haven't been colored out, so we got to make sure that we color them out. How do I do this? I'm going to create a border. Okay, I'm going to create a border for the paint, so for the bucket to recognize, because if I just clicked on here with the bucket, it would it will color out the whole thing. So I'm going to create a border. There we go. And now the bucket knows that it has to finish painting there. Okay, great. I have to deselect, Control D to deselect. One last thing, make sure these 3 boxes are clicked, okay, are ticked. Otherwise, well, you can have problems. We do explain how these work in the presentation course. Okay, they're very important, and well, Photoshop offers many kinds of, many ways to select. Anyway, make sure these 3 are selected. And finally, this one, another rectangle here. Back to the bucket. And there we go, Control D to deselect. So we have this, perfect, and we need to create another pattern for the exterior, okay, for the outside of the building. Well, these stairs are also the inside part of the building, and we're going to do them one by one. Well, this contiguous means that it will color whatever pixel there is until you find a different, like a different colored pixel. Okay. Tolerance here, you can have it between 15 and 30. If you go over the top in tolerance, you can paint more than what you wish, and if you have it under 10, probably less. How we draw in architecture is somewhere between 15 and 30. So if I had here 100, I probably would, it would start recognizing these walls, part of the walls, as things I want to draw, and I don't want that. So tolerance somewhere between 15 and 30, and all of these boxes selected. This is fine for now, and I'm going to open. Okay, I'm going to File, Open, and Exterior Wood. This is wood for the terrace and for these stairs that are in the outside. Okay, again, image size. Make sure 500 is okay, and then edit, create our pattern. Where are we? Define pattern. That's okay, and back to our drawing, in which we have to create another layer. Call it wood. X for exterior, select it, and then bucket and change our pattern. There we go. And we want to color this and these. This is going to be hard work. You're probably thinking it stands out much more than what I would like it to stand out, but we can reduce the opacity, and that's something that's very interesting in Photoshop, because it works really well. You can play around with opacities until you find exactly. I'm using the space bar, okay, to move. Great. So, well, now we have a much better looking. So as I said, you've got an opacity here, and I can drop it, let's say 65, something like this. And well, you're giving this wood a lot of protagonism, but you just want a hint that we've got a texture here, so we don't want it to be very. And when it comes out in paper, normally you can see it really well. So I'm going to leave it here in 30 for now. Okay, great. And finally, if we open concrete, open, this is going to be for the garage. again, image size 500, more than enough. Also, it's going to occupy the whole file. It's going to occupy less. And edit, and where are we? Define. Keep missing it. Edit, define pattern. There it is. Concrete. Okay. And back to my garage. So if I clicked here, I'm going to create another layer because I'm not in a layer. I'm going to say concrete. And if I clicked here, because I have this contiguous thing, it's going to find the nearest line. Okay, so it would color out this. Look, I'm going to do it. Okay, boom. So it's too much. Now, Control Z. So what I want to do now, well, first of all, I'm going to change the pattern. I'm going to go for the concrete. And again, I'm going to define the limits that I want Photoshop to select, and then back to my bucket, and off it goes. And I want these parking lots to be seen, so Control D to deselect, and a new, I'm going to say parking lots. Click on this one, same texture. But in this occasion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the opacity by a significant, maybe something 20%, something like that. And then this one, 60%. That's okay for now. Great. So what I'm going to do now is I have to be really organized with my layers, as you do in AutoCAD. So I'm going to create a folder. I am going to call it textures. I'm going to select them all, Shift and this one, put them into their folder, and maybe assign a color, orange for example. And I'm going to create another layer because I'm going to color out these walls. Okay, so I'm going to call this one walls. And for this one, again, it's up to you. I'm going to use foreground now, and I'm going to change the color. It's up to you what kind of color you want to use. As we have been using this range in the last couple of exercises, we can use it again. But anyway, something sort of dim, something like this. So it stands out more, the section. Okay. Let's make sure everything is selected, because then it looks awful. It stands out much more than it should. Great. And well, you started off in AutoCAD, you know, the section, sorry, the floor plan was really technical, and now you are adding value to the presentation, and also you're adding information. You're telling the viewer about the textures here and so forth. So that's good. I'm going to add a shade, okay, to this wall, okay. And for this, there is an option. If you right click on here and you go to blending options, drop shadow, you can keep this in 40, and maybe, well, this is up to you, but look, you can decide where the light comes from. So maybe if you want to do it from here, and distance also, well, we want to keep this here, spread, size, distance. You can change things until you find something you like. Okay. $40 is okay, and there we go. Okay, so we have, you know, some extra volume, no more character to the final drawing. And now we're gonna color out this big white area, which is basically soil, not terrain. And to do this, we have to find our where are we? Find your documents, and in documents where you've got the textures, we've left a file for you that's called ground. Okay, these are brushes for the use in Photoshop. If you double click on this and come back to your Photoshop, select your brush tool, which is here. Okay, and on this arrow here you should have, I'm going to leave everything here as you would find it, you should have your new brushes downloaded. They're called ground. Okay, if you don't see them, if you click here and you say import brushes, then you can find, you know, wherever you've left them in your computers and import them from there directly. So I'm going to click on ground and I'm going to select one, for example this one. Okay, this one is okay. Check this out. This is how it looks. I'm going to Control Z, and I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to call it ground. I'm going to select it, and what I'm going to do now is to find a color for it. This is maybe too light. We want sort of, you know, more or less the same tone, but a bit, you know, on the gray side. Okay, see how it looks. You can change the size of the brush tip here. You want to make it smaller, or if you want to make it bigger. We want like a big brush now, okay, because by having a big brush, you're going to cover more. And maybe this is too gray. I'm going to give it a lighter color. Okay. And so if I started to do this, but you know, this is not exactly what I want, despite the fact it's in a different layer and I could cut it out. What I'm going to do is to find an area that, you know, recognizes the white. So I'm going to use this magic wand, and if I click here, it's going to recognize the white bits in this layer. Okay, so just by clicking the white and having a more or less this tolerance, okay, Photoshop does a selecting the pixels that are white in the layer. So now I can go back to my brush tool. Well, but before I carry on, I have realized that, well, when you select in Photoshop, as you can see, you've got this dashed line here, and I don't have a dashed line here. So if I came over and selected, you know, using this, using the brush, I would paint all over the place. So I want to go back to my magic wand, deselect, And this works in a similar way to, you know, the bucket, in which you just click on a part of your drawing and it will select the pixels that are similar, okay, to the ones to the one you click on. So depending on the tolerance and depending on these options, if you sample all layers here, it will find, you know, the white pixels up to the point in which, you know, these white pixels stop existing. If you don't sample all layers, I go Control Z, what it's doing is that it's just taking into consideration the ground layer, and because there's nothing in the ground layer, it's going to select everything. Another thing is that you've got this shade here, okay, and we don't want this way, okay. We want the selection to get up to this point. We want the ground to cover the whole thing. So I'm going to say Control Z again, and if you come over to walls and hide this one, much better. I'm going to create another group. I'm going to call it walls. I'm going to have it here. I'm going to put this inside, and blue, for example. And now I can do it. So click here and select my brush, come to the ground floor, and now look, yes I am, because this is selected too, so I'll just have to be careful there. This shouldn't be. Okay, so I'm going to deselect, and now I'm going to use this lasso, okay, polygonal lasso, to get rid of the bits. If I select, you know, if I select a window, up to this point, and away it goes. And also over here, make sure this one is the one you select, new selection. Away it goes. And maybe I can create another group here, call it ground. Just so you know, this is like a very summarized yellow. So it's like a quick overview of what you can do in Control D in Photoshop. You can do many more things. Okay, I'm going to again drop the opacity, and you can start working on these things. And you should select this. Okay, well, much better. Okay, so this is like an overview, like an introduction to what you can do with Photoshop. If you dedicate 1 hour, 2 hours more with the program, the results can be absolutely amazing. This is so you see that, you know, by combining these softwares, you can gain, you know, much more, especially in terms of presentation. And in the project, well, look, I've just checked this out. So I'm gonna select this in the layer, away it goes, Control Z, whoops, no, away it goes, and Control D. So in our presentation course, we work, we work from this part of Photoshop, and we start, using many of these tools to, end up with a final result, which looks more or less like this. Apart from being the presentation being much better, okay, it gives a lot of information, looks very professional, okay. And I've just realized again that, where are we? Something's missing. What about my annotations? There we go. Okay, so remember, you don't have to do this for this AutoCAD course, but I do invite you to give it a go, because it's the beginning it may look a bit difficult, but as you gain confidence, Photoshop is very, very useful. See you in the next unit. Goodbye.